Welcome to my channel Alien Signal. The decree of 1,000 suns. The war decree arrived wrapped in light. It tore open the silent dark between stars as a blade of folded space, emerging in the outer orbit of Jupiter where humanity's deep-range listening arrays floated like a crown of metal thorns. The message was not transmitted. It was imposed, burned into every frequency, every channel, every gravitational whisper that human instruments could perceive. Across Earth, screens flickered. In lunar shipyards and Martian colonies, in the oceanic arcologies and the orbital habitats circling Venus, the same image manifested, a vast chamber of impossible geometry, its architecture spiraling upward like a cathedral built by mathematics instead of hands. At its center hovered a being crowned in cold starlight. It declared in a voice translated instantly by algorithms that strained to contain its harmonics, are the sovereign radiant Imperium. You have trespassed into volumes of space designated sacred to our dominion. Your expansion halts now. The being's eyes glowed like collapsing suns. You will dismantle your outer colonies. You will surrender autonomous military command. You will submit to inspection and oversight. A pause, calculated, theatrical. Refusal will be interpreted as a declaration of war. The transmission ended not with static, but with silence so absolute it felt engineered. Humanity had officially met the galaxy. And the galaxy had brought terms. Within 24 hours, every major power on Earth convened in emergency session. The United Nations Security Forum merged with the Martian Assembly and the Lunar Directorate in a historic triplanetary summit. Analysts parsed the message. Linguists examined the phrasing. Physicists trembled at the energy signature required to project such a transmission across light years without delay. But the most disturbing revelation came from deep space reconnaissance. The Imperium's fleets were already moving. Thousands of vessels, vast, crescent-shaped constructs, slipped from subspace in disciplined formations at the edge of the Kuiper Belt. They did not advance. They simply waited. A demonstration. Humanity had been measured and judged. After 36 hours of tense debate, a response was chosen. Not a fleet mobilization, though those quietly began. Not a surrender, though some voices had urged caution. Instead, humanity would send a diplomat. Ambassador Elias Ward had been born in Nairobi, raised in the Pacific Federation, and educated in the orbital academies above Saturn. He was not a soldier. Not a politician. He was, according to those who knew him best, a patient man. He boarded the ISSV Horizon, a sleek diplomatic cruiser fitted with quantum relay systems and the best defensive shielding humanity possessed, and set course for the designated Parley coordinates just beyond Neptune. The Imperium responded instantly. A single Imperial dreadnought detached from the distant armada and glided forward, its hull reflecting starlight like liquid obsidian. It dwarfed the horizon 1,000 times over. A corridor of hard light formed between the two vessels. An invitation. Ward straightened his jacket, adjusted the silver pin bearing Earth's emblem, and stepped into alien light. Middle, the chamber of threats. The interior of the Imperial dreadnought defied human expectations. There were no corridors in the traditional sense. Space folded inward, guiding Ward along a path defined more by intention than architecture. Gravity shifted subtly, accommodating his biology. The air composition recalibrated around him, thin tendrils of mist weaving invisible life support matrices. They had studied humanity. The chamber he entered was the same as the one from the transmission, an immense amphitheater spiraling upward into a haze of luminous energy. At its center hovered the sovereign radiant. Around it, arranged in ascending tiers, were dozens of other beings, different forms, different physiologies. Some were crystalline lattices vibrating softly. Others were towering entities draped in bioluminescent veils. Vassal species, Ward realized. Conquered. Human ambassador, the sovereign intoned. You stand before the Imperium. State your submission, and your species will be granted continuance. Ward stopped at the center of the chamber. He looked small, fragile, entirely unarmed. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, in a gesture so mundane it seemed almost absurd, he reached into his pocket. The chamber reacted instantly. Energy flared. Defensive systems hummed. Several vassal species recoiled. Ward withdrew a slender white cylinder. A cigarette. He placed it between his lips, patted his pockets, and looked up at the sovereign. "Anyone got a light?" he asked calmly. The silence that followed was not engineered. It was stunned. "You dare," the sovereign's voice sharpened, "to mock the Imperium." Ward shrugged slightly. "Not at all. I'm listening. Just thought I'd get comfortable." A filament of focused plasma materialized before him, an Imperial energy probe, humming with enough power to vaporize him instantly. Ward leaned forward and lit the cigarette from it. A few of the vassal delegates emitted sounds, shock, perhaps fear. The plasma flickered as Ward inhaled, the ember at the tip glowing bright orange. He exhaled slowly, a stream of smoke curling upward toward alien constellations embedded in the chamber ceiling. "You threaten us with war," Ward said evenly. "Before we respond, I'd like to clarify something." The sovereign's radiance intensified. "Clarify. You believe we expanded into your sacred space intentionally. That we knew of your claim. You broadcast signals. Primitive. Chaotic. We observed." Ward nodded. "Then you know we're young. Barely a few centuries into interplanetary travel. We didn't know you were there. Ignorance does not absolve trespass." "No," Ward agreed. "It doesn't." He took another drag. "But it does change intent." The chamber dimmed slightly, as though adjusting focus. Ward continued. "You see a species spreading outward. Consuming resources. Building fleets. You assume ambition. Aggression." He glanced up at the tiers of vassals. "Maybe you've seen that before." The sovereign did not respond. Ward's voice remained steady. "We expand because we almost died on our homeworld. Climate collapse. Nuclear brinkmanship. Biological disasters. We learned the hard way that survival requires redundancy." He flicked ash onto the gleaming floor. "It disintegrated instantly. We don't conquer to dominate. We expand so we don't go extinct." Murmurs rippled among the vassals, vibrations, pulses, flickers of color. The sovereign's tone hardened. "Your fleets are armed." "Yes," Ward said simply. "You develop weapons of planetary scale." "Yes." "You prepare for war." Ward met the being's burning gaze. "We prepare," he said quietly, "because the universe is not empty." The words hung between them. The sovereign projected an image into the center of the chamber. The Imperial Armada at the Kuiper Belt, thousands of ships poised like blades. "We have ended civilizations older than your sun," it said. "We have reduced empires to radiation." Ward nodded again, as if acknowledging a business proposal. "I don't doubt it." He took one final inhale and extinguished the cigarette against his own palm. A faint hiss, the smell of scorched fabric. "No flinch. But before you decide to add us to that list," Ward continued, "you should know something about humanity." The chamber's gravity tightened subtly. "When we nearly destroyed ourselves," he said, "we didn't just build better shelters." Images now flickered from Ward's own projection device, authorized by prior agreement. The sovereign allowed it. Human shipyards spanning orbital rings. Fusion arrays the size of continents. Swarms of autonomous defense drones hidden within asteroid belts. Dark, angular vessels resting in Martian caverns. "We built contingencies," Ward said. The image shifted to something else. A lattice network surrounding Earth's sun, barely visible unless you knew what to look for. The sovereign's radiance dimmed a fraction. "What is this construct?" Ward's eyes did not waver. "A failsafe." He let the word settle. In the event of an extinction-level invasion, he said calmly, our automated systems initiate Protocol Pyre. The projection zoomed in. Gigantic solar lenses, gravitational anchors, stellar ignition triggers. We can turn our sun into a directed energy weapon, Ward explained. A flare amplified and shaped. It would erase every ship within several astronomical units. A ripple of alarm coursed through the chamber. It would also devastate your inner colonies, Ward added softly, and destabilize nearby systems for centuries. The Sovereign's voice thundered. Mutually assured destruction. Ward nodded once. We learned from our own history. Silence returned, heavier than before. You would annihilate yourselves, the Sovereign said slowly, to deny us victory. Ward's expression did not change. If the choice is extinction or resistance, he replied, we don't surrender. Ending. The weight of decision. The chamber dimmed into contemplation. The Sovereign conferred with its inner circle, not through speech, but through pulses of energy and shifting harmonics that resonated across dimensions. The vassal species watched in stillness. Ward waited. He did not reach for another cigarette. Minutes stretched. Then the Sovereign's radiance stabilized. You are a paradox, it said. Primitive, yet prepared for stellar-scale retaliation. Fragile, yet willing to embrace annihilation. Ward offered a faint smile. We're adaptable. You propose coexistence. We propose boundaries, Ward corrected gently. Defined space. Open communication. Shared knowledge where mutually beneficial. And if we refuse, Ward spread his hands, then we both lose. The Sovereign studied him, this small carbon-based organism standing alone in the heart of an empire. You display no fear, it observed. Ward considered that. Oh, I'm afraid, he admitted. Every human alive is afraid right now. He met the being's gaze again. But fear doesn't mean surrender. The chamber seemed to contract around that statement. At last, the Sovereign spoke. The Imperium does not retreat. Ward said nothing. But, the Sovereign continued, it recalibrates. A wave of energy pulsed outward, carrying orders across the void. Far beyond Neptune, the Imperial Armada shifted formation. Not forward, back. The vassal delegates emitted a spectrum of reactions, surprise, relief, perhaps even hope. We will establish provisional borders, the Sovereign declared. A neutral corridor between our dominions. Further expansion toward Imperium core worlds will be considered hostile. Ward inclined his head. Fair. In return, the Sovereign added, you will share the principles behind your stellar failsafe. Not the mechanism, the philosophy. Ward blinked once, surprised. You want to understand why we build it? Yes. He considered the request. Because, he said slowly, power unchecked leads to tyranny. And tyranny breeds rebellion. We built Protocol Pyre not to conquer, but to ensure no one ever could. The Sovereign absorbed that. In our history, it said, strength ended conflict. In ours, Ward replied, balance did. A pause. Then, for the first time, the Sovereign's radiance softened, not dimmer, but less severe. The Imperium acknowledges humanity, it said. Not as vassal, not as enemy. The chamber seemed to exhale. But as equal force. Ward allowed himself a small, private breath of relief. Glad we could clear that up. A faint flicker of something, perhaps alien amusement, rippled through the Sovereign's light. You may return to your people, Ambassador Ward. The hard light corridor reformed. As Ward turned to leave, the Sovereign spoke once more. Human. He glanced back. If war had come, would you truly have activated your star? Ward met the ancient being's gaze. Yes. No hesitation. The Sovereign studied him for a long, immeasurable moment. Then it is well, it said quietly, that we chose dialogue. Hours later, the horizon slipped back toward the inner system. News of the Armada's withdrawal spread across human networks like wildfire. Celebrations erupted in cities and colonies alike. But in a quiet observation deck overlooking the stars, Elias Ward stood alone. He removed another cigarette from his pocket, rolled it between his fingers, then paused. Outside, beyond the glass, the Imperial fleet receded into distant sparks of light. He smiled faintly. Humanity had not fired a shot. It had not bowed. It had simply stood its ground. Ward placed the cigarette back into his pocket unlit. For now, at least, there was no need for a light. And somewhere in the vastness between stars, an empire older than human civilization had learned a simple, indelible truth. Never mistake calm for weakness. Especially when it belongs to a species that survived itself. Thank you for listening. Subscribe for more cinematic science fiction stories.